Less than 3 weeks until the 2024 NFL Draft, and there is no better time now than to size up what the rest of the AFC North has done this offseason. We got Pete Smith from the OBR in here. We're going to talk about it. Your latest Locked On Browns starts now.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends, your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound LGB on the LOB, the Locked On Browns podcast, brought to the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Your host, Jeff Lloyd. I appreciate every single one of you that make Locked On Browns your first listen every single day. The everyday crowd keeps on growing. Appreciate you all so much. Join the everyday crowd. Subscribe to the Locked On Browns YouTube channel. Show is always available, always free, wherever you get your podcasts. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Like I said, we got the OBR's Pete Smith in the house. I hope everybody had a fantastic weekend. Whatever your indulgences are, NCAA tournament, the women's tournament, which was absolutely fantastic. WrestleMania weekend, total eclipse of the heart Monday. I hope everybody found a little something for themselves. But fact of the matter is we are about less than 19 days from the 2024 NFL Draft. So I thought no better time than now. Not much left on the market free agency wise. I guess we'll start right at the top. The Baltimore Ravens, there's been a lot of talent that has moved out of Baltimore. Defensive side of the ball, offensive line. There's been a lot of turnover for the Baltimore Ravens. Obviously, I don't know how much that matters. Most of this Baltimore run here over the last few years has been Lamar Jackson. It has been Mark Andrews. It has been some good players on defense. But, Pete, I'm not saying the cupboard is bare, but the turnover definitely has been in a negative spin for the Baltimore Ravens thus far.
They have work to do. All these teams have work to do. The Ravens are potentially replacing 3 offensive linemen. They've lost Simpson in free agency. They lost Kevin Zeitler in free agency. They've got major question at left tackle with Ronnie Stanley's health. They've got a whole bunch of stuff they've got to figure out. Linebacker, wouldn't say it's a hole because they've been drafting way too many of them for the last couple of years, but they have vulnerability, the edge depth, sort of a question mark. They need
when Kyle Van Noy is your one, that's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, they've just got a lot of things to sort of firm up. I mean, like I said, they're still going to be a good team, but when you sign Derrick Henry, there's an expectation that they're going to block. Because if they don't, if they can dominate the line of scrimmage, Derrick Henry becomes a much more impactful signing. If he's expected to sort of carry them, then it's probably going to be a tough situation for them. That's their whole focus this offseason. I would be stunned if their first round pick isn't a tackle. And that's the thing. Like when you're looking at these teams, all 3 of these teams we're going to be talking about have needs to fill, or like if the season started tomorrow, they would not have that position.
Well, I mean, Morgan Moses, at the right tackle position, both guards. Ronnie Stanley. The thing is, it's getting there as far as an age concern and injury concern. What was once this revered, and even up until last season, because at a lot of people's metrics, the Baltimore Ravens defense was viewed as the best defense in the NFL last year. A lot out of there. Patrick Queen moving on, Trenton Simpson moving in, for what the money was going towards Patrick Queen. Look, for Baltimore, that's probably, it's probably going to be a win-win. You're going to pay a ton less in money and probably get similar production. But this team, there's been a lot of overhaul. You look at the wide receiver room, and after Flowers, who was fantastic as a rookie, it's it's a lot of same old guys and the same old names and the same old questions that we've had for the same last couple of years. I'm waiting for him to bring in that one veteran that all of a sudden we're going to be, this is going to be the guy that finally lights it up with Lamar, because they do it every year and it never works out. And with Lamar, look, it's incredible. I mean, he's as good as can be. But Pete, like this, and I know we've talked about this almost every all season. You still have to wonder, how long can this guy consistently do this body-wise? Like, he's not built like Josh Allen. Eventually this is going to take its toll on him.
Well, I mean, he's missed the end of multiple seasons. I mean, this past year was the there are a number of reasons the Ravens are dying inside because they didn't win the Super Bowl or even get there.
True.
They lost all of these players in the offseason that they're going to have to now replace. And Lamar Jackson got through the season healthy. And now they have to replace all that talent. And you don't know if Lamar Jackson's going to make it through the season healthy because of the way he plays, because of the different things he does. Everybody wants to put him on the ground every game, every play, if they can help it. So there is a volatility with them. And now, who's the backup quarterback going to be? So
lost a Pro Bowler there.
This is true. So you have to look at this Ravens team, and again, they're good. Like if we fast forward to the end of the year and they're in first place, nobody's going to sort of be surprised. But there are at least enough things there where you're sort of like, I want to see them do it, because right now, if Lamar Jackson goes down, it is Josh Johnson and Malik Cunningham. Like I would expect, Malik Cunningham fan over here, but I would expect them to potentially draft a quarterback in that room, which is one more thing that they would be addressing. Wide receiver continues to be a thing for them. I love the return on investment they got for Odell Beckham, but they do not. So they've got just a lot of these positions to try to improve upon. They're a good team. There's no getting around that, but they got to figure some things out.
Well, I mean, the one question I have with the Derrick Henry move is, everything you lost. I mean, is Baltimore going to continue to be playing from ahead, where they think that move's going to make a difference? But Pete, if we're supposed to talk about a headline move, I guess to this point for the Baltimore Ravens for this offseason, it's got to be simple. It was in-house. It was bringing back Justin Madubuike.
Yes. The problem you're running into is that they are so interior focused. Their defense is built like how you would dream to build a defense in baseball. Like right up the middle, they're great. They've got impact defensive tackle. They've got Roquan Smith as an inside linebacker, and they've got really good safeties like center field, second base, and shortstop, and a catcher. Like they're great there, but they need to get more. They want to get more out of their edge rushers. Jadeveon Clowney's gone. Obviously, Kyle Van Noy had a really productive year for them, but that's one of those where the wheels could fall off at any time. They've got Owe, who's gets pressure, which is good, but he doesn't deliver like they want him to. And then they're still waiting for David Ajabo to sort of come along. So that's another position where they need help. I don't know if it's in this draft. I really don't like this edge class. That's one where you wonder if the Ravens may pull a rabbit out of their hat at some point and make a trade or something where they can bring in a veteran. There's part of you that wonders if they were not thinking about making the move that the Giants did, bringing in that edge rush element and trying to just beef that up, because the money's a factor, and that's probably why they don't do that move. But there's nobody on that edge where you're sitting there going, this guy's a dominant guy. And look, the thing we're not talking about that might impact the Ravens the most, they have lost 3,500 coaches. Their defensive coordinator gone. The guy who was going to be the next defensive coordinator also gone. They're on the fourth guy or whatever at this point, and they've obviously hired new guys. And it's not, again, I'm not going to suggest they're bad, but they had really good coaches, and you've got to figure that out. In the same way that we're all talking about, you've got people talking about, well, the Browns changed all these offensive coaches. Are these new guys going to be good? The Ravens have to have those same questions answered. And ultimately, the Browns may be well served by the coaching changes they made. I think they will be, but it's really difficult to imagine that the Ravens are going to be better on the defensive side of the ball from a coaching standpoint than they were last year.
No doubt. A lot of turnover, certainly, on the sidelines as well. And maybe if there was a headline loss of a move for Baltimore, could have maybe been the headline gain for the Cincinnati Bengals. We're going to talk about them next. Your latest Locked On Browns continues. Jeff Lloyd, DLBR's Pete Smith, along for the ride. It's that time. Almost everybody has now officially had their opening day, and Gametime is now an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. For me, I love the last-minute ticket deals. I told you all the time. My wife, we have teenagers. We don't know when we can go to an event. So most of the time, if we are going to go, we are certainly somebody that is going to buy last minute tickets. You have flash deals. You can save even more with an exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or the event. They have all-in pricing. Toggling this feature shows the total up front, no surprise fees at the checkout. You know what you're getting. Click, click. You're in, you're out, and you're off to the game, show, whatever. Lowest price guarantee or Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets. Lowest price guaranteed. Your latest Locked On Browns continues. Your host, Jeff Lloyd. I appreciate everybody who makes Locked On Browns their first listen every single day. The OBR's Pete Smith in here. The everyday crowd, you're a bunch of animals, but you're my animals. Love you all to death. Join the everyday crowd by subscribing to Locked On Browns YouTube channel. Show is always available, always free, wherever you get your podcast. Pete, we get to the Cincinnati Bengals, and this is one, like, actually, it just kind of dawned on me today. Here is this team still now, like, when is the T. Higgins thing going to be resolved? They've been active, but certainly this team has questions. You moved on from Joe Mixon, and we all know the running back. Everybody thought he was going to find his way to Cleveland. He did find his way over to Cincinnati. A lot of it's going to come down to Joe Burrow's health. How do you address the fact that you had those three dominant receivers, and it looks like technically only one of them is coming back? Still a lot of questions over in Cincinnati.
Yeah, the Bengals don't have a nose tackle. They just don't. Like, their nose right now is theoretically Jay Tufele. They lose DJ Reader. They missed out on everybody else. I mean, getting Sheldon Rankins might be helpful, but I think it's a downgrade from what
Houston had all the money in the world. They didn't fight to keep Sheldon Rankins.
DJ Reader, he was good. Like, he was a problem in the middle of that defense. The second game in 2022, that was the DJ Reader game where he basically shut down the Browns running game basically by himself. They also have, you mentioned the wide receiver thing. That's a big question mark, but I'm less concerned about that than the offensive line. Trent Brown was a massive signing for the Bengals. Trent Brown is a good football player when he feels like it and when he's healthy, which are both ifs. Like, he could be great for them, but they basically still have to draft a first-round tackle because Trent Brown is there for 1 year, and he has a horrible track record for health. They have a major question at left guard. I don't know if they're going to be content to just roll with Cordell Volson again. And this is a team that went wire to wire with all five linemen healthy last year, and Joe Burrow still got hurt. So that is a problem. Defensively, beyond the nose tackle situation, you look. I like what they've done with their secondary. I'm less concerned about corner than I guess some people are. Cam Taylor-Britt's a good football player. They've got Mike Hilton as the slot, very good. And then DJ Turner was naturally going to slide into that other outside corner. Now he's got to play better. Obviously he's a rookie last year and he's little. He's got to prove it, but I like what they've done for their secondary. My question for them is entirely, how are they going to deal with the front? Because right now, if you are every team in the AFC North, you are licking your chops at the prospect of running the ball at this team because maybe they can stop the pass. But when DJ Reader went down, the linebacker play fell off a cliff for this team. The defense basically crumpled. So you're basically looking at this draft and you're going, they're going to have to take an offensive tackle, and they still may have to take Tavondre Sweat at 49 because they just don't have anybody. And, unless they're going to just roll the dice and be like, yeah, we'll just figure it out. We'll see. But they're in a tough spot. And this is what the Bengals too often do, where they put themselves in a situation where they basically script their picks ahead of time, and they are all set to take Frank Ragnow, who goes to one pick before them, and they just move to the next center, who's Billy Price and can't play.
Board sliding your picks always obviously the most asinine probably way to manipulate your draft room. But Pete, what, and that's the thing, because I mean, you can make a talking point here for several positions for them, and the kid from Princeton obviously played pretty well last year, but you're most likely moving on from T. Higgins. There seems to be no interest whatsoever for Tyler Boyd to return to the Cincinnati Bengals, which I know is fine for you, and certainly is more than fine with me, as long as it doesn't go to Pittsburgh, of course. So they have to be in on the receiver market. You have to almost be on the offensive tackle market. Like you said, they have a glaring need at nose tackle, and that's because DJ Reed was basically the tone setter for that defense for the last few seasons. I understand maybe not trying to get into it because he did sustain another serious injury, but you didn't have any plan B, and they've done nothing to address it to this point. Now they're not going to get any help now, and banking on a rookie nose tackle is that's even just ask the Browns how their top 100 pick went on their nose tackle last year. Now this is look. I mean, Joe Burrow. There's no denying the talent that Joe Burrow has. He's going to be missing some of his weapons. The offensive line could be better. That doesn't mean necessarily good. So it all comes down to Joey B, obviously, again, and his receivers and Jamar Chase. And, Jamar Chase is going to be somebody who obviously wants to hear and talk about his money. We know the way it's going to work there. They're just a really, really confusing team. And, I'm not positive that, I think whatever window of opportunity that Cincinnati Bengals had as far as, consistent playoff runs, successful playoff runs, I think it's probably, for the most part, probably over.
They are the Cleveland Guardians of the NFL. Like, you have to get very lucky relative to the NFL, they are a small market team, and you've got to hit all the right things at the right time to go, because you can't pay out these contracts. You get your Jose Ramirez, and then you got to fill it in around him. Like, it's a very difficult way to go.
Yeah, with a center fielder that doesn't hit a home run in a year and a half, right?
It just has to be incredibly frustrating to operate that way. But like, the thing with the Bengals is, like, their defense the last couple of years, you saw them walk onto the field. They were physically massive. Like, they were just giant people. And they're losing that. BJ Hill is a decent, fine defensive tackle. Sheldon Rankin's there to upgrade their pass rush. They're going to need a lot out of Trey Hendrickson, again, who's been a great player for them. They're going to need a lot from last year's first-round pick, the defensive end from, was it Clemson or whatever?
Miles Murphy.
Yes. And then, they've got to get some luck or stop screwing him. I don't know which. And stop letting my man Joseph Asai get hurt, because he's been a good player for them when he's been upright, but he's another guy who hasn't been healthy. But like Sam Hubbard is not a pass rusher. He is just a rundown guy, and they need to be able to, the way they're going, they're going to need to be able to package better than they have in the past.
I just don't see it. And, where they're drafting, it's not going to be a slam dunk overall, sensational player that they're going to add to this fold unless something drastic happens. They're in no position, in my opinion, to risk draft assets to trade up and try to get somebody that's a difference maker. There's a lot of holes with the Cincinnati Bengals. And, the looming thing is obviously going to be, Jamar Chase is going to be another heavy contract for them. And this is a team that's just never going to be able to push the button as far as salary cap. They just don't have it that way. They're not wired that way. It's just something that they're not going to be able to do. We are going to go to the final representative of the AFC North that the Browns face every season, the Pittsburgh Steelers. And we'll chat about that because, some in Pittsburgh land think all the issues are solved. A lot of people outside looking in at Pittsburgh think that maybe the issues are even bigger than they were. Your latest Locked On Browns continues. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. A lot of us spend our lives wishing we had more time. But the question is, time for what? You're going to take that jog you always kid yourself that you're going to take. You're going to sit down, crack open that book that looks like an ornament sitting on your night table. If time was unlimited, how would you use it? The best way to squeeze that special thing into your schedule is to know what's important to you and make it a priority. Therapy can help you find out what matters to you so you can do more of it. Look, I got a lot of things I got to balance between daughters, my mom, my wife, of course. And then there's also trying to make sure that I am the best version of myself. That's where something like therapy can come in and be instrumental. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Learn Learn to make time for what makes you happy with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Closing out your latest Locked On Browns, segment 3, your host, Jeff Lloyd. Appreciate all of you who make Locked On Browns your first listen. If you are not part of the everyday crowd by now, make a new plan, stay and subscribe to Locked On Browns YouTube channel. Show is always available, always free wherever you get your podcast. The OBR's Pete Smith in for the ride. We are discussing where the other AFC North franchises are at this point, 2.5 weeks away from the 2024 NFL Draft. Pete, it kind of got, I guess, a little weird with Pittsburgh. You kind of knew it wasn't working with Kenny Pickett, and then they wanted to keep Mason Rudolph. They weren't showing, and then it's Russell Wilson. You make the trade for Justin Fields. Would I say you upgraded over Kenny Pickett? Probably. Are you sure you have a future to that room at this point? Because I think one of the biggest concerns with this move is, look, I'm okay with trying to give Justin Fields this opportunity. But right off the bat, there's a huge question that goes along with this is, obviously fifth-year option. And then if you do pick up the fifth-year option and your plan is to play Russell Wilson, the whole thing gets even more cloudy, even more murky. You moved on from Deontay Johnson, but you kept Pickens, who is probably a bigger head case than in trouble at times than Deontay Johnson is. This is a team that doesn't have a starting center, Pete. It doesn't have a center on the roster. A lot of questions in Pittsburgh.
So by my count, they have 49 career center snaps on their entire roster right now.
Pretty good.
That's
so 3/4 of a game.
Another problem is their left tackle, Dan Moore. They've gotten good return on a 4th-round pick, but they have switched from 3 quarterbacks who get rid of the ball relatively quickly to the 2 slowest in the NFL. So they could get away with having iffy linemen in some respects before. They can't do that now. Like, it's going to be a lot harder unless they're going to try to get these guys to get the ball out quicker. Maybe they try that. If not, they're going to take a lot more sacks than they have in the past. So tackle becomes a major priority for them in addition to center. Their number 2 wide receiver, Van Jefferson. Number 3 wide receiver, Quez Watkins. Like, the Steelers have their defense is pretty good. Like, they've fixed the whole. If Patrick Queen is everything they're paying him to be, they look pretty good on the defensive side of the ball. It's all about their offense. Their offense is worse than last year right now, and they need to hit draft picks based on what they're looking at right now. Even if they go out and sign Mason Cole at a cheaper rate than they initially released him, it's asking a lot out of this group. Like, you could see a world where they take one of the tackles, move Broderick Jones to left, put that guy, whoever they draft at right. Dan Moore becomes your swing guy. Whether they draft a guy at center or something, somewhere in that draft, they likely take a receiver in the 2nd or 3rd round and potentially have to put them in right away. There's just Russell Wilson is going to play in an objectively worse situation than he was in last year, which is the reason he's in Pittsburgh in the first place. Like, I think Russell Wilson can fit the offense they want to run better than their other options. Like, I still think Russell Wilson is better than Justin Fields. I don't buy the idea that Justin Fields is going to sort of take that job. But either way, like, whoever is playing quarterback right now, it is not good. Like Pat Freiermuth, I like Pat Freiermuth. Jalen Warren's a talented player. George Pickens is what he is, which is talented, but everything else that comes with him. But, like, they have a ton of work to do. And this idea that, like, they're a better team than they were since the start of this offseason is really iffy to me. Like I said, they are looking right now to win games 10-9 again, based on the moves they've made at this point.
And the whole thing, look, I mean, yes, you want to start Russell Wilson. If you pick up the 5th-year option on Justin Fields, and neither one of these is in a winnable situation, because if Wilson doesn't make any mistakes. There's going to be half the fan base that wants to see Fields because probably, you have something invested in him. And, if you're ready to write Russell Wilson off as done, that's fine. But, then there's going to be those who think that Fields is done. Then there's going to be those who think he just didn't truly get the opportunity. And it just, it just seems like it certainly, has, a potential for, a lot of, just issues to come from that front. But not to mention that, you just don't have a lot of talent on that offensive side of the ball. You want to try and win, low scoring, smash mouth, all that stuff. I mean, yeah, it just doesn't necessarily work here. I don't know where the Pittsburgh Steelers are at this year. And that being said, 8-9, whatever, 9-8, it's probably where it's going to end up because it's just, death taxes, and it's always the way it ends up for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I just don't know exactly where the direction of the franchise is right now. And if they had found a way to maybe just say the hell with it, and let's just mortgage this season and to get the quarterback of the future, I guess that probably, in my opinion, would have been the way to go. So you took your bumps and bruises this year, and then hopefully by 2025 you were ready to go. I just don't really necessarily have any idea what's going on with Pittsburgh. I mean, you paid the money to a linebacker. It's just all of it just very, very confusing as to what the Pittsburgh Steelers are doing. And again, offensive line issues, just like the Ravens, just like the Bengals, kind of just a lot to work through. Of course, things can look different, certainly after the draft in 2025, the 2024 draft, which will be, about less than 20 days or so away. So we'll see. But the OBR's Pete Smith in for the episode. Always appreciate Pete's time this time of the year. Look, Pete and I could talk for hours, and most of the time we talk for 25 minutes before the record buttons even hit. It's a great time of the year. If you're there, there's people that are just 100% into the draft, 100% into roster building. Pete and I, that has always been something we shared in common. So these conversations this time of year are always better than they usually are any other time of the year. But appreciate it. Make sure you're following @_Pete Smith _ Make sure you're reading all the work over at the OBR. I am your host, Jeff Lloyd. I appreciate all of you who make Locked On Browns your first listen. The everyday crowd keeps growing. Get in, join the party, subscribe to Locked On Browns YouTube channel. Show is always available. It's always free wherever you get your podcasts. This has been your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound LGB on ELOB. Let's go Browns.